Hello, Bobcats! Welcome back to another great week at the Helena Middle School. I hope everybody enjoyed the extended weekend with the Vigilante Parade, the sunny weather we were having. I know I did. I got some sun this weekend. I'm getting excited for summer, but we still have 4.5 weeks left. And remember our motto this quarter, we have got to finish. Finish every day, finish every week, finish every period. We have a little change up this week without advisors Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. Savannah Smith and her door decorating is going to get pushed back 1 week, so that's an important message for everybody out there. I believe she was going to come on this Friday the 13th, and so I'm thinking she'll be here the 20th. I will send an email out to advisors once I get in contact with Savannah to see when she wants to judge those. Remember, those can be any of the 5 tenets of Be Your Best Self, or it can be based on Montana, because remember, this is a nationwide competition for her, so either or works. We got another week of testing. Make sure we're getting lots of sleep, make sure we're eating healthy and doing our best. I'm going to venture into some careers today. We're going to talk about interest types, and I think I'm going to break into realistic interest types. I think realistic interest types is, especially living in Montana, living where we do in this fantastic state, I think this is a very viable option for lots of you Bobcats someday as we start to think about careers and what interest type we fit into, and specifically what really interests us and moves us. And remember, this whole unit on careers is all about passion and what drives you and what you want to do, and my goal for all of you is to find a career someday where you wake up and you can't wait to do it. Because 62,400 or more hours is a lot of hours to work. So let's get rocking and rolling on this B.O.B lesson number 30, Holland interest types, and we're going to break into realistic careers. Let's remember to make a great week at the Helena Middle School.
Hey Bobcats, hello from my 2 dogs and I. I have been told that you guys aren't doing advisor this week, so instead of judging the doors this week, I'm going to judge them next Friday the 20th. The winners will be announced on the 23rd, one in each category. And I bought some of the prizes today, so I'm so excited to see what you guys are coming up with. So keep working hard, and I will see you soon.
All right, Bobcats, we are on to B.O.B lesson number 30. And in B.O.B lesson number 30, I'm going to introduce career. All right, so now I'm going to introduce something called Holland Codes, and this was invented by an American psychologist named John Holland in the middle of the 19th century, the 20th century, and he basically said that we as human beings have different personalities, and we know this to be true from other B.O.B lessons that I have talked. We all have our own different personalities, but he basically came up with a theory that you could take somebody's personality, and depending on what their personality is, you could break them into a different interest type, and their research showed that their personalities that they have are going to flourish in certain career environments or certain jobs or careers, and human beings are going to have more fun, they're going to have more accountability, and they're going to have higher levels of enjoyment in certain interest type areas, and I really believe this is true. So he broke this into 6 different interest types. If you look at the top left, you have conventional, and I'm going to break these down here for the rest of the school year and talk more about careers and break these interest types down. You have conventional, you have realistic, which I'm going to talk more about today. You have investigative, you have artistic, you have social, and you have enterprising. And we can do some assessments, and we may get to that here in the future while Miss Pandis and myself come around teaching you guys about careers and taking interest types. And I know you guys have taken some stuff on career cruising already, but they can essentially ask you about different types of jobs and your enjoyment, and would you be interested in that, and would you think that is fun, and they can break it down. My interest type is social, enterprising, and conventional. Social being number 1, the orange one, enterprising being number 2, the blue one, and conventional being number 3, the gray one. And you'll notice that when it comes to this hexagon, a lot of times your top 3 are going to be on the same side, or they're going to be closely aligned, because all of these interest types do align closely with one another. For instance, I'm a social interest type, and the last kind of careers I would want to do would be realistic, and you can see that's across the hexagon. If you were a conventional interest type, you would have the opposite personality of somebody that is an artistic interest type. And same with enterprising. If you're an enterprising type in the blue, you're going to have, that's going to be way different than being an investigative type, and so on and so forth. So we have these 6 different interest types, and my goal for you guys in these last few Bob lessons to close out the year is to really sit and think, would I enjoy that? Not how much money would I make, not the kind of social status these jobs have, but would I enjoy doing these types of jobs? Do they fit my interests? Do they fit my skill types? So the first one we're going to look at today is called realistic. And realistic career characteristics emphasize using your body and muscle to build or produce things. So you're going to be using your hands and your body more than you're going to be using your mind to problem solve in the realistic realm. These are doers. These are people who are practical and thrifty. These are people that are mechanically oriented. This is why my roommate is very mechanically oriented. My neighbor across the street that lives between me and Mr. Kepler, shout out to Mr. Kepler and his advisor, is very mechanical. So whenever I have something go wrong with my lawnmower or my car, he's always the one that I go to. Again, I'm very the opposite of the realistic type. Realistic types work in all different kinds of environments. They work inside, they work outside, they work in warm weather outside, they work in cold weather outside, they work in all different types of environments. Another characteristic of realistic type is they use tools and they operate machinery. That neighbor that I mentioned, he's got like the ultimate man cave. He's got every tool, every gadget imaginable, and I'm the opposite. I barely have a toolbox with a screwdriver, and so I go over there and borrow his stuff. He's a good neighbor and a good friend. But a lot of these realistic careers, you have to use your tools and you operate machinery to build and assemble things. Some of these careers involve being outside and interacting with animals, maybe being out in the woods, maybe being a park ranger or a rancher, and I'm going to get to some careers here in a minute. These careers are often more male-dominated industry, but that does not mean that the ladies out there cannot do these careers as well. But in the realistic career, inventory types, you definitely see more males in those types of industries or doing those types of careers. A lot of the realistic careers require medium levels of education, oftentimes an apprenticeship where you start working and you learn to be a carpenter under somebody. And then once you learn, you take tests and you get certain certifications. A lot of realistic jobs are on-the-job training where you get hired and somebody teaches you how to do it. Somebody teaches you how to put on a roof. Somebody teaches you how to clean something effectively, so on and so forth. A lot of realistic careers may require 2-year degrees, like the Helena College of Technology. The 8th graders that got to do that awesome field trip to Helena College learned about welding. They learned about carpentry. On the high school tour we did, when you think about the shops out there, those are all realistic skill type building activities. So let's look at some typical realistic careers. I mentioned earlier agriculture, being a rancher, being a farmer. You are having to, it's a dirty job. You have to work with animals and clean up after animals. In farming, it's hard work. You're out there on the fields. You're under the sun. You're exposed to the elements. Being a carpenter or a builder, somebody that builds things, builds houses for a living. Same as general contractor. General contractor is going to oversee a whole job. Being a roofer, I've done some roofing in the summer, even though it's opposite of my skill set, but I work for my brother as a roofer in the summer, and it is very hard work, but it is rewarding work when you can see your work coming together. Being a firefighter, being a truck driver, working in the concrete, working as a bricklayer. I mentioned earlier working as a welder. Helena High has some awesome welding 1, 2, 3, 4, and you can go on to Helena College or some other 2-year schools and get your 2-year welding, and there's some really awesome careers out there in the welding field where people come out making a lot of money and they get to weld metal and steel and produce some pretty cool stuff. Being a janitor, being a park ranger, I mentioned that earlier. Being a plumber, an electrician, knowing how to work electrical work. You'll notice that a lot of these again are building or producing some sort of good or service, usually with your hands or using tools. Being an auto mechanic, being an oil field worker, or being a miner. And these are just a list that I came up with that came to my mind when I thought about typical realistic career. So I want you to kind of look over that list and think, is that something that I could be interested in someday? Or conversely, you may be thinking, no way, no how. Those do not look like that's something I would want to do for 62,400 hours or more in my career. All right, the quote of the week is, choose a job that you love and you will never have to work a day in your life. And that's really the direction I'm going in. I'm going to hit that home for Careers Month here in May. And it's so true. I don't feel like I come to work, but I don't really feel like I work. I do work, but I really enjoy it. And that's what this quote is really getting to. If you find something that you love, you don't feel like you're working. You feel like you're having a sense of purpose, that you're doing something that you really love. All right, last week's JellyBean question of the week winners were Dakota Cunningham, Alexander Marquette, Braden Fisher, Cassandra Singleton, and Kale Lanius. This week's JellyBean question of the week is, today I introduced Hall and interest types, and I briefly talked about each one or name them. Can you name all 6? And if you can't name all 6, feel free to name as many as you can, and when I start drawing names, I'll get kind of a feel of how many you guys were able to name. All right, folks, 4.5 weeks left. Let's make it the best 4.5 weeks of the school year. Let's finish every period, finish every school day, and finish this week strong. Make it a great week, Bobcats.